Pakistan cricket at its best. 1 minute down, next minute up. Thanks very much, everybody, for joining me once again. Sad Sadek here on behalf of PakPassion. My guest today is a dear friend of PakPassion for many years, a wonderful writer, wonderful journalist, and a wonderful man above all. He's done video interviews for PakPassion. He's done written interviews as well. He's the fountain of knowledge when it comes to West Indian cricket, Caribbean cricket. And as I say, journalist, TV commentator, radio commentator, the one and only Fazeer Mohammed. Fazeer, Assalamu alaikum and Eid Mubarak.
Mubarak Eid, wa alaikum assalam, Saj, and indeed to all our listeners and viewers who are members of the global Muslim community. I certainly hope that this is really a special time for all of us. And of course, we remember our pilgrims in the Hajj and hope that they have a Hajj Mabrur as well.
Absolutely, Fazeer. Cricket fever in West Indies at the moment in the Caribbean?
I would say so, yes. It's taken a while to warm up because I think for many people in the Caribbean, there have been mixed feelings about the chances of the West Indies of actually lifting the title for a third time. And because of the sometimes disjointed way that this tournament is structured, where you have a situation where if you want to compare it, for example, with the Euros football, which has just gotten underway, you never have a situation where you'd have games clashing and therefore a viewer would have to choose. Here with the Cricket World Cup, you have games being played almost simultaneously on a regular basis. But putting that aside, we're coming up towards the Super 8s. And yes, with a lot of the big guns moving on, with the notable exception of New Zealand and Pakistan, of course, which is in itself, I'm sure, a talking point for your audience. Yes, the interest is building and the fever pitch is starting to rise.
Yes, the interest is also increasing because the local team, the West Indies, is performing very well.
Yes, they are, and I think they've exceeded expectations in some ways because there was always the fear that they would capitulate at the key moments, and indeed when they were 30 for 5 in their last match, there was a real fear that it would all really crumble and the West Indies might actually struggle to get into the Super 8s. But we saw that superb innings from Sherfin Rutherford, and indeed the West Indies have shown that fight and that grit that is so necessary even in a shorter format as the T20.
We'll come on to some of the positives of the tournament in a short while, Fazeer. But I think first and foremost, let's talk about the pitches, especially the drop-in pitch in New York. What did you make of that?
That was always a bit of a gamble, and I'm actually surprised that the authorities went ahead with their plan without much trial of the actual surface. And indeed, as we saw in a couple of those matches, there was a bit too much assistance for the faster bowlers, with the batsmen getting hit on the gloves, hit on the body, and it didn't make for the sort of spectacle you want in the T20 format. Having said that though, Saj, I am not one of those who would like this sort of road type surface, the as we would call it in the Caribbean, the concrete strip type of pitch, where you would see, for example, in the IPL, where you'd regularly have scores to 20 to 40 to 60 and bowlers are really cannon fodder. I would like to see a greater balance between bat and ball, because I think the essence of the game is a fairly even contest between bat and ball, even in the T20 format. And I accept that many people like to see 6s and 4s. But to me, that gets quite boring when it's only 6s and 4s. I like to see the bowler having at least a fighting chance of challenging the batter on a regular basis. So I'll take the point, not just the New York surface, but some of the other surfaces in the Caribbean have been a bit too paced. But I'll add to that, Saj, and it's not an excuse, it's a reality. We have just started our rainy season in the Caribbean. So it's very difficult for ground authorities and our ground staffs to prepare the hard, fast surfaces that many people would like to see. There's a lot of rain around throughout much of the Southern Caribbean, where you're talking about Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, where the semi-finals are going to be played, where much of the Super 8s are going to be played, and even the final in Barbados and much of the Super 8s in Barbados in the Eastern Caribbean, you are seeing a bit more precipitation, a bit more rainfall. So that would have contributed to this situation with the pitches.
Speaking of rainy season and the weather, hurricane season in Florida, not the best time to host cricket, is it, Fazeer?
No, it isn't. And again, it begs the question as to the planning. And again, I think we all have to acknowledge that the international calendar is so packed. It's very difficult to find the room for any sort of tournament and any sort of innovation. But it's always a gamble to play cricket in this part of the world. And you're talking, as you said, about Florida as well. And Florida at Lauderdale, they've had their issues for years about the drainage at that ground. And it's happened many, many times where it hasn't even been raining and there's been no play because there was rain earlier in the day. So there are a number of structural, infrastructural issues that go along with that. But as I said, it's always a gamble to be playing cricket in this part of the world at this time of the year. The good thing is that it's T20, so it's a lot shorter format, and you could probably get away with a 5-over match or an 8-over match just to get a result. But it takes away, obviously, from the spectacle itself.
You've got the rainy season, as you've mentioned there, Fazeer, and on top of that, Imad Wasim mentioned at the press conference yesterday about the lack of covering at some of the grounds. He specifically brought up the issue of Sri Lankan grounds and how they're all fully covered. And then when the rain stops, the players can get back on the field pretty quick. But it doesn't seem to be the case in a lot of the venues at the ongoing World Cup.
And that's a question of economics, because remember again, and once more, it's not an excuse, it's a reality. Our territories are very small nations. You're talking about populations which don't even cross 1 million. And for many of these nations who really are sustained primarily by tourism in many cases, it's just not economic sense to invest in the cost of covering an entire ground, even for international cricket. And that has never been our practice. What we've tried to do, especially since the 2007 Cricket World Cup, is to provide grounds with better drainage. But even in that case, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So yes, that is another handicap, if you want to refer to it, when we talk about the issues of the challenges when it comes to rain and cricket. But again, I'll say it for the risk of sounding repetitive, it's unnatural to be playing cricket or any serious international cricket at this time of the year, although it's become a habit now because we've lost our Caribbean season to the IPL, to the PSL, and so many other franchise tournaments, which really pull all of the major cricketers.
Let's talk Pakistan, Fazeer, unfortunately. What have you made of their performances?
You know, as someone who grew up admiring Pakistan cricket, because as a West Indian, of course, West Indies would be my first team. But I can tell you, many West Indies fans who grew up in my era would have Pakistan as their second favorites because of seeing so many outstanding cricketers come to the Caribbean. Your Imran Khan, your Wasim Akram, your Salim Malik, your Wasim Raja, who was a great favorite in 1977. Sadly, he's passed away. Of course, Ramiz Raja, his brother, and so on. But to see Pakistan basically throw away their chance of going to the Super 8s, it just seems so typical. And maybe many of your audience will be offended by it, but it just seems that Pakistan find ways to lose that even put the West Indies to shame, because we've grown up with the habit of saying that, you know, when you're going to watch the West Indies play, you check your pacemaker and your pressure tablets, because it's never going to be an easy ride. And it just seems to be even worse in the case of Pakistan. I mean, that's super over with so many wides in that match against the USA. I mean, the game against India, okay, high pressure, high stakes, and all that goes with it. But a run a ball over the last 6 overs and you lose? I mean, come on.
There'll be a lot of soul searching. I'm sure there's going to be quite a lot of words spoken after this debacle in Pakistan cricket, Fazeer. But I think ultimately the players have to take a lot of responsibility, don't they?
Absolutely. The players have to take responsibility. And I don't know if the situation in Pakistan cricket is, how should I say, unemotional enough to really step back and assess the situation without all the emotion and the anger that goes with it. One of the challenges we also face in the Caribbean, and I'm sure in many other jurisdictions, Brazilian football is a classic example, is that there's a tendency to overreact, to make knee-jerk reactions, and not properly assess a situation. Is it that the players are too complacent? Is it that the system or the structure rewards mediocrity? Is it that it's not about punishing players or punishing administrators, but asking the question, are not just the best players being selected, but are they supremely motivated and prepared, not just technically, but temperamentally, to take on the best in the world at crunch time? Because that is really what it comes down to. When you're talking about the T20 format, especially, look at that game between Nepal and South Africa. Nepal should have won that match, but again, because they are really getting their feet wet at this very highest level, the nerves stepped in and they lost by 1 run. You can't say that about Pakistan. Pakistan are one of the established powers in the international game, and therefore you think that the players would be better prepared, better attuned, and better equipped mentally as well as technically for those close moments.
Pakistan's loss is USA cricket's gain, Fazeer. And do you think this is a key moment in the growth of American cricket?
I would hope so. If we again draw a football parallel, when the USA got the Football World Cup finals in 1994, it was hoped that that would be the stepping off point for the game to really take off in the USA. And we've seen that happen. It's taken a while, it's taken almost 30 years, but now football, or soccer as many refer to it, is really well established in the United States. Now in the USA, and it's quite obvious that it's primarily the expatriate community from the subcontinent, from the Caribbean and other parts of the world, from Europe, from England and so on, who are really the nucleus of the cricket community in the United States. But again, it's a World Cup. It's going to start to attract attention very, very slowly, but very surely. And it's really about the authorities in the USA putting aside their own internal bickering, because that's a challenge in itself. Because not so long ago, Saj, the USA was suspended by the ICC for structural issues, for accountability issues. There have even been issues of racism being brought up in the selection of teams and the various issues that come up with that. So it's a challenge in such a multicultural community as the United States. But really, with a World Cup having been held, there's so many big matches, USA getting to the Super 8s, India, Pakistan playing there and so on. It really is up to the authorities now to capitalize on this, to really ensure that the game not just grows, but grows to even the non-cricket community in the United States.
And finally, Fazeer, as we approach the Super 8 stage of the tournament, any standout teams? Who have you thought of as the favourites?
I can't see anyone beating Australia, to be quite straightforward with you. I watched that game last night against Scotland. And even though it went down to the last over, you almost got the sense that the Australians were toying with the idea of losing so that England would get knocked out. Of course, that's not part of the Australian culture. But again, just the way that they are playing the game so far, they seem so assured, so confident, so dominant in all aspects. And they seem to have the tools as well. They've got the variety in the bowling. They've got the quality in the batting. But I think more than anything else, they've got that confidence that borders on arrogance that seems to suggest that Australia are going to be a very, very difficult team to beat going the rest of the way.
Well, Fazeer, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy your Eid with all your family. And I mean, with Pakistan out, I'm definitely supporting the West Indies.
We appreciate the support, and indeed, I would like to say that it won't have any heartbreak or any anxieties the rest of the way. But trust me, when you're talking about the West Indies, like Pakistan, you walk with your blood pressure tablets.
Thanks very much, Fazeer.
Take care.